Hello, women's literature. Today we're going to talk about Dorothy Parker. Dorothy Parker was writing during the latter part of the modern era and the beginning of the postmodern and contemporary era. She was known for her very biting sense of humor. She has a lot of really fabulous one-liners and very short poems that are just kind of jokes. In her private life, however, as many funny people are, she was depressed. She was known to abuse alcohol quite a bit and openly discussed her suicide attempts. She, in fact, has several poems that are oddly very funny about attempting suicide. So she had a very, very difficult private life. Um, because she became such a famous poet, she had poems published in Harper's Bazaar and the New Yorker. She eventually moved to Hollywood and became a pretty successful screenwriter. Um, and she also, at the same time, was very politically active. So she worked very hard against fascism and the Nazis and raised lots of money and all that kind of thing. And ultimately, because of that, during the Red Scare, she was labeled as a communist and was blacklisted. Um, Ultimately, her life was pretty rocky. So she did have lots of affairs with different men, and again, was very open about this. She had one pregnancy, which she openly had an abortion, which was very unusual not to have an abortion. There were lots of abortions happening, though illegally, but she was very open about her decision. Um, and ultimately, she died of a heart attack in her 70s, not of suicide, although her abuse of alcohol probably contributed to her death. But she willed all of her assets, money, property to Martin Luther King Jr. because she was so moved by his efforts. So a very interesting, complicated woman. So I picked this first poem for you called A Certain Lady, and this gives you a really good taste of Dorothy Parker's sense of humor and her view about men and women. She says, "Oh, I can smile for you and tilt my head and drink your rushing words with eager lips, and paint my mouth for you a fragrant red and trace your brows with tutored fingertips." Now notice that already she's saying her fingertips are tutored, right? Meaning that they've been well taught. She's done this a lot, so there's a very open acceptance of her having had a romantic past with lots of men. And she's saying, I'm good at this, and I can drink your words and make you feel important. When you rehearse your list of loves to me, oh, I can laugh and marvel, rapturous-eyed, and you laugh back, nor can you ever see the 1,000 little deaths my heart has died. So the man in this case is oblivious that she is performing for him. She's not really happy, but he's sort of too dumb or thick to know. So behind this mask, her heart has died 1,000 deaths, she says. And so you believe, so well I know my part, that I am gay as morning, light as snow, and all the straining things within my heart you'll never know. Right? So she says, I'm so good at this by now that there's no way that you'll ever really know what's going on inside me. Oh, I can laugh and listen when we meet, and you bring tales of fresh adventurings, of ladies delicately indiscreet, of lingering hands and gently whispered things, and you are pleased with me and strive anew to sing me sagas of your late delights. Thus do you want me marveling gay and true, nor do you see my staring eyes of nights. So it kind of continues. The guy comes home and he, tries to kind of tease her by talking about his other jaunts with women, and she plays along and she's a good sport, but she says, you don't really see what is going on with me. You don't see my staring eyes at night. And when in search of novelty you stray, Oh, I can kiss you blithely as you go. And what goes on, my love, while you're away, you'll never know. So the poem is set up all the way almost to the end to show us a relationship between a woman who we think is kind of being mistreated by this guy who's sort of a tramp, right? So he's going out and he's having affairs with other women, and he's coming home to this woman who is really like privately suffering. So for most of the poem, we see her as kind of a victim and we see him as a villain. But then at the very end, she says, yeah, when you go to have your little affairs, I'll kiss you sweetly when you leave. But when you leave, you don't know what I'm doing either. So although it's a dark poem about people kind of treating each other badly, you can see that Dorothy Parker is an empowered woman. So she is not a victim who is going to stay home and cry about her man stepping out on her. She is just as smart as he is, if not smarter, and she can fool the best of them. This poem is a little bit sillier, and this is a really good example of her kind of brief, cutting little jabs that made her so famous. So this one's called Men. They hail you as their morning star because you are the way you are. If you return the sentiment, they'll try to make you different. So we have this setup here that if a man says that he loves you and you say that you love him, immediately he's going to try to start shifting you around and changing you. And once they have you safe and sound, they want to change you all around. Your moods and ways they put a curse on. They'd make of you another person. So here she's saying, once they get control of you, then they're going to start to reshape you into what they want you to be. They cannot let you go your gait. They influence and educate. They'd alter all that they admired. They make me sick. They make me tired. So here at the end, again, we have that really kind of nasty, biting sense of humor. But ultimately a poem about Parker's experiences with men trying to change her around. I really like that line, they'd alter all that they admired. So for her in particular, she was a very independent woman, which drew a lot of men to her. But once they entered into a relationship with her, they wanted to kind of tamp down that independence, right? They wanted to change the thing that they'd admired. Very good example of Dorothy Parker's wit, humor, although very dark. And she was absolutely part of this step forward to empower women, although in her case, she's doing it in kind of a funny, backhanded way. I hope you enjoyed Dorothy Parker and got a few chuckles out of her. And if you would like to ask any further questions about her, feel free to send me a message.